Hello and welcome to this reaction video to a 1997 episode of The Bill. My name is Oliver Crocker. For the last 8 years, I have produced and presented The Bill podcast, where I've been very, very lucky to interview hundreds of the cast and crew from this show that I grew up watching from the mid-90s. During that time, I've recorded something like 300 podcasts, either standard podcasts, which are released for free on all good podcasting platforms monthly, or for the Bill Podcast Patreon channel, where there is weekly content released, which has been going now uninterrupted for over 5 years. So it's content going out every other day. That content includes over 350 reaction videos where I watch episodes of The Bill for the first time from across the 90s through to 2010. I'd already seen all of the Bill episodes up until 1992 by the time I was starting the podcast, and I grew up watching The Bill starting in 95, and I was still watching it around 2006, but by then I was at uni without a television, so I'd go home sometimes, and if The Bill was on while I was at home, I would watch it. I remember Gillian Telforth's first episode as Sergeant Nicky Wright, watching it on a tiny little box telly in my old bedroom back home. So despite loving The Bill and being addicted to it as a kid, there are still probably over 1,000 episodes I haven't seen, one of which I'm going to watch today. Now, I may well have seen this back in 1997 when it was first broadcast. It doesn't ring any bells. Occasionally while I've been recording these, I've had a flashback where I'm like, oh, I remember this, watching it as a 10-year-old boy, on transmission and having not seen it. It's lovely when little moments like that happen, especially on episodes or with characters that are particularly close to me. We all have our favourite characters from The Bill, or characters we grew up with and are very, very fond of. And I've been lucky to meet so many of the cast, and they're all really lovely people as well as talented actors. So that's a special buzz when you get to meet your heroes and find out that they're really decent quality people. Now, the reason I'm recording this reaction, my good friend and fellow Bill podcast presenter, Patrick Stratford, recommended this episode because it features a wonderful actor by the name of Alfred Burke, a mighty actor of a long-standing career. Sadly, he's no longer with us. He's perhaps best known for playing Frank Marker, the inquiry agent in the classic Thames series Public Eye, which was on between 65 and 75. I've been watching that series for the first time on Talking Pictures over the last year or so, and absolutely loving it. The reason why Alfred Burke's name came up in conversation with Patrick, I'll reveal as I go through the episode. But it was Patrick's suggestion that perhaps I should release a reaction for free on YouTube, so that, because there are fans who are still discovering the Bill podcast for the first time. It's been played over 400,000 times to date over the last 8 years. But there are still new fans discovering the podcast. There are still new fans joining the Bill Podcast Patreon channel. So the idea here is, if you enjoy watching me react and review this episode of The Bill, I will share a few nuggets of information along the way, which you may or may not find interesting. And if you're interested in watching more, then there are over 350 reaction videos on the Patreon channel. You can join from £2.99 as a rookie patron, where at the moment it's really exciting time to join, because Patrick is going to be hosting a brand new spin-off podcast called the Bill Obocast, where he is joined by fellow fans to discuss their favourite part of the Bill. Could be an observation on a favourite character, a favourite episode, favourite storyline, maybe their least favourite character or least favourite storyline, and get a few things off their chest. Could be top 10 episodes in a particular era. That's in production right now and starts on the channel, on the Patreon channel, at the end of January 2025. So that's going to be released for all patrons, including rookies. Plus, rookie patrons right now are getting releases that Constable patrons currently have access to. That includes 6 special reaction videos where I sat down with Andrew McIntosh, who played DS Alistair Gregg, and the wonderful Natalie Rolls, who played DS Debbie McAllister. And in 6 installments, they watched highlights from 3 stories that Andrew played DS Gregg in, 2 of which Natalie guest starred in, before they then watched 3 episodes from back to back after the famous 2002 Sun Hill Station explosion. And they react to highlights of those episodes together, and they're great fun. So those reactions are being released monthly as of right now for rookie patrons. Then later in the year, I'm going to release some pilgrimages where I actually visit the Barbie Road location that was used as Sun Hill Station between 1987 and 1990. I am joined by a member of the cast there. I won't say who. I also visit the other Sun Hill Station exterior that was used at that time, a stopover while the Barbie Road set was still being built, ready for filming. So that's on there too. Plus, there's a few off the beat podcasts where members of the cast and crew talk about some of the other iconic shows that they worked on in their television career. And so there'll be a few of those released later this year as well. Or as I say, you can unlock all that content plus an awful lot more. There's over 200 hours worth of content on the Bill Podcast Patreon channel, from $5.99 as a constable. If you go all the way up the tiers, you'll unlock over 120 cast crew commentaries, where some of the actors have been reunited for the first time in many years, also reunited with writers, camera, producers, directors, script editors. There's a real wide range of these names that you'll recognise from the famous credit sequences on the Bill over the years. They finally share their memories of the Bill too. It's a real privilege to interview so many people who made what, for, I'm sure if you're watching this, our favourite show. So, long-winded introduction over. That sets the scene. This episode, appropriately, is called After All These Years, which I'm watching for the first time. And as I've said many times on the podcast, the Bill for me is the gift that keeps giving, because there's still so many episodes I'm watching anew. Especially, I'm currently watching in order 2007 episodes of the Bill, and have been recording reactions to them now for the last 2.5 years. And so there's so many characters, I don't know what happens to them. I don't know, because I wasn't watching as a regular viewer by then. I myself was working in television at that point. So there's a whole voyage of discovery there, the highs and the lows of the Bill during that era. The last thing I'll say about this before I press play is that 1997 is an interesting time for the Bill. The show has been producing 3 episodes a week now for 4 years. And I've reacted to some other 1997 episodes on the Patreon channel. And I think it's fair to say that at this time, the cracks were beginning to show. You might have a really, really gripping episode one day, and 2 days later, you could have what I've termed a pedestrian episode, where it might be that you've got a new writer joining the show. It could be you've got a new director joining the show. And sometimes I feel Bill at this time feels a bit like a corporate video shoot. and it hasn't got the edge that so many of the earlier episodes had, with the handheld cameras and innovative direction. Sometimes, I don't know about this episode in particular yet, but sometimes episodes felt like it would be a series of mid-shots, close-up and reverse. Mid-shot, close-up, reverse, close-up, reverse, close-up, reverse, next scene, repeat the setup. Sometimes, not all the time. So I'll just add that, but I'll be looking at this episode to see if it really shines at an era where the Bill perhaps was feeling a little jaded from 4 solid years of making 3 episodes a week, and before, obviously, the following year, it revamped into its original hour-long format. There's more I'll say, but I'll save it for the reaction. I think I've been talking long enough. You're probably thinking, get on with it. So I will. I'm watching it on, you remember these lovely old Shock DVD collections? Now sadly long out of print. There are the Viavision sets online. It's quite expensive to be a Bill fan. There are obviously other ways of watching the Bill through Ewan's Drama online. But yeah, I've got, look at Russell Bolter, another lovely man, absolutely fantastic actor. I remember showing him that and he was like, what am I doing? Look like I'm posing for This Is Your Life. Yeah, quality actor. So I'm watching it from disc 4 of this set, series 13, part 4. I say series 13. The Bill, when it began half hours in 1988, all the way to finishing half hours in 1998, that entire time by the production team was classed as Series 4. There was never a Series 5, 6, 7, 8. The Bill never had a break in production. It was an ongoing series. And the half-hour series as a whole, that 10 years of production, is Series 4. I've seen the production paperwork that confirms that. Then, once the hour-longs began and Carlton took over, they began having new production codes with CAR for Carlton. So yeah, it's just interesting that all this kind of labelling, it's DVD marketing and branding. It isn't actually how the Bill was produced. Anywho, long-winded waffle over. I'm going to press play. I don't do picture-in-picture on these reactions. I invite people to press play after a 3, 2, 1 countdown. So if you're interested in watching this episode with me, please get it set up and I'll do the countdown. I will also mute the theme music because sometimes that will get blocked by YouTube, which I don't want to happen with this. Okay, so after all these years, let's go. 3, 2, 1, play. Just going to mute the titles for a moment. Andrea Mason alongside Graham Cole there. I'm very lucky to say that with the exception of 4 actors there, one of whom is sadly no longer with us in Kevin Lloyd, I've interviewed all those actors for the podcast. After all these years, here we go. By Lisa Evans, this was her first Bill episode. Tim Holloway, he directed 4 episodes.
Can you tell me your name,
And there's
please?
Alfred Burke.
Walter Lilly.
And where do you live, Mr. Lilly?
Where?
Your address.
How bad is she? Unconscious. Head injury, probably internal bleeding. Critical. We're not hanging about.
Now, is there anybody you want me to call?
My daughter.
He's a wonderful actor. I've got so much to say.
Either of them said anything about what happened? Not a word. Okay, let me know when you leave.
Lisa Evans was writing for Casualty at this time, so it's interesting that she's weaved in the other emergency service early on.
Could be.
I'll check the car.
So,
Smells like an awful license in there. Shall I breathalyse him now?
Well, it's a bit tricky at the moment. I'd rather wait till they check him over at the hospital.
Right, well, it looks like we're off.
Sita Indrani and Andy Paul, as of recording this, I've spoke to both in the last few weeks, wishing Merry Christmas and things like that. quality people.
Well, it's just the one vehicle and a wall. Let's get started then. See how Oscar through.
I like the direction on this.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
I like the moves. Won't get that cup of tea, I'm afraid. June.
Right, on my way.
Trudy as well. Spoke to very, very recently.
Okay, Ruby, and you say the car was coming along the road towards you.
Really amazing people who
Well, it's
all
swerved.
appreciate what the
Yeah,
Bill
'cause it
did
gave
for
me a
their
shock.
careers.
1 minute,
and
he's just
appreciate
coming
the
along
fans.
road, and the next, he's driving up in pavement into the wall. Really old bloke. He must have had a fit or something.
So you don't remember anything being in the way? Kid, dog?
It was a kiddie
Yeah? Where?
over there.
Great location.
But it wasn't a pushchair.
Right. What about flying rubbish?
Nah. Wasn't no flying saucers neither.
This is serious, you know.
Don't tell me.
See, this is a little bit, you know what I was saying about the
Okay, what about any
reverses?
vehicles travelling in the opposite direction?
Just a
towards
little
the car?
bit what happens
No.
sometimes in this
Is she
era.
gonna die?
Quite a
I don't
traditional
know.
setup.
Address, please.
What for?
Well, you're a witness. We
Television
might need to
doesn't
contact you
really
again.
do this
Got
anymore.
caught with lie.
Well, it's possible. Now, if I could just have your address, please.
43 Swan Court, Canley Road. Can I go now?
Thank you.
Hanley.
Thank you.
Margaret Cornish. Mrs. I saw the accident happen as I was
Marker,
coming
did she
home,
say?
Okay,
That
right.
might be a nice
Mrs.
little
Cornish,
nod.
which way are you going?
away from the library.
So that's towards the bus stop, yeah?
Yes,
So the car was coming from behind you.
that's right.
So when did you notice it?
When it passed me, it was going quite fast, about 35 miles per hour, I'd say.
That's what's great about the Bill, isn't it?
35.
Yes.
You get,
Okay.
The accident,
So after it passed you, then
and we
what
get all the
happened?
facts,
Suddenly
and then we'll
veered
get
over
the
and just drove into
investigation.
the wall. It was a terrible noise. Oh, I couldn't believe I was seeing it. Is it very serious?
This is a lovely performance.
Okay, you was driving along. Can't you remember anything? Did you turn the wheel to avoid something? Is he concussed?
Could he have fallen asleep at the wheel?
Yeah, possibly.
It's getting on with it. It's
We went
got a
over
good
the
pace,
curve.
the story.
He'd have woken up and hit the brakes then, they always do. But that wouldn't have slowed him up much. There'd still have been no tire marks on the road.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
If you ask me, they're lucky to be alive.
Dave mentioned that there was a strong smell of alcohol from inside the car.
Yeah, they've been stocking up on booze, a bag full of it in the boot.
Quite a handy location because it's tucked away from
What's our
a
ETA?
main road.
There.
Can we do CPR? Yeah.
Oh,
One.
I hope Alfred Burke's going to get more to do in the
He
episode.
didn't let anyone else.
Yeah, we should be on the road at his age.
Oh, really?
Come on, Sarge. Half these old geezers can't see beyond the end of the bonnet.
What's happening?
Oh, it's the other passenger. It's the person he hit.
Good God. All right. Yeah. Last time I did that, it didn't work.
Oh, that's a nice
Okay, mate.
bit of detail. So I love the camera moves in this. Other than that reverse bit,
Receive. What about the
and that's a
husband?
great shot. The walk in with the
Receive. Thanks, Marika.
It's a huge setup, this, when you actually think how much organisation must have gone into this.
It is registered to
scene.
Walter Lily at 12 Willersley Road.
When was it first registered to?
See, I much prefer this
Well, 'cause it might be a new
This
car for
shot,
you, mate.
I don't know. It's
where
a
it's
possibility.
started from a close-up,
340
a
receiving.
walking shot, settled down to a
Yes, David,
two-shot,
can you give me a date that
background
the
information,
Juliet
acting
910
going on.
Charlie uniform whiskey was first registered to Mr. Lilly.
People don't adjust.
And this is how quality the actors are. They've had to, this is a long take. If either of them forgot a line here, they'd have to go back to the start and reset.
But the old chap even fell asleep. I was taking him at the wheel,
That's what it looks like at the moment.
which could happen to anyone.
Which is great. If you do that all in one shot,
Better go and break the
you
news
get
to
like
Doctor.
this probably 80-second sequence done in one go, move on to the next in one setup.
That's it. Thank you. You feeling okay?
It's a lovely
I'd
acting.
like to ask you a few questions about the car accident.
That's my wife.
She's in theatre at the moment.
She was in the car as well. Sorry, I was talking too much at the beginning.
She hasn't said anything.
I know this must be distressing for you, Mr. Lilly, but we need to find out what caused the accident.
Yeah, yes, of course.
Okay, that's
So there was
negative.
I
supposedly
told you.
a kiddie.
Can you try and think back to when you were driving along? Where were you coming from?
See, that's great. She moved to the other side of the bed.
Try.
The shot can change.
Shopping.
He is a wonderful
I've been
actor.
to the supermarket.
Good.
We
Really,
bought wine for the party.
Right, then what happened?
I was just driving.
real quality.
That's all.
Were
Now,
you
Public
talking
Eye-
with your wife?
No. I like to concentrate.
Did anything happen to
Public
break
Eye
your
was produced by Michael Chapman,
I keep seeing Jean in the
who's
ambulance.
producing the bill.
I can't live without her.
Oh,
Mr. Lilly, this afternoon something caused you to pull off the road, drive up onto the pavement and into a brick wall.
No, don't.
We need to know.
Something ran out. I braked, I swerved.
What was it?
Excuse me, Mr. Lilly. Going to take you up to X-ray now.
it's great pace. This is getting on with it very quickly.
Yes. Hello, I'm Sergeant Ackman. This is PC Quinnen from Sun Hill. Are you going to Hacker?
Yes.
Can we come in?
What is it? What's happened?
Oh, it's about your mum and dad. Can we come inside?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Are they all right?
Oh,
There's been a car
golden.
accident.
My lord, they're not...
No, it's all right. Both your parents are alive, but your mother's been seriously injured.
What do you mean? How serious? Where are they?
They're both being treated at St Hugh's.
Come take us in. I mean, I saw you standing at the doorstep and my mind immediately went. Something terrible's happened.
Do you want to sit down for a moment?
No, I'm all right. Really? We must go to them at once.
Do you want to lift?
No, I've got to come. Is that Glasses Wender? Where did it happen?
At Taft Road, near the library.
Where does Mum keep the big plates these days? Oh, sorry. Kath, Mum and Dad have been in an accident. They're in St Hugh's. What about the party? Oh, I'm sorry. Are they okay? Mum's badly hurt.
Yeah.
Well, how badly?
Well, the hospital will be able to tell you more.
I'll go and get the coats. What happened?
Well, we're not sure exactly. The car came off the road and went into a wall, and nobody else was injured.
Well, who was driving?
Your father.
Dad's done all the driving for ages.
You don't know if he was on any medication, do you?
No, he's as fit as a flea. He's never ill.
It's so unfair that this should happen now. I just wanted to give her a party. Mum is ill. You see, she's got cancer. It's just been diagnosed.
Oh. Oh.
181 from Sierra Oscar 3. Are you free to speak?
Go ahead, Sarge.
Yeah, what's going on there, Narika?
I'm still at the hospital. Mr. Lilly's
So
breath
those
test
lines
is
would be
negative.
read in by someone else,
Oh, that's something.
and then
Has he said
Sita
anything
would
about the
dub
accident?
them later.
Yes, Sarge. He told me he swerved because something ran out in front of him.
Right, thanks,
Usually a
Narika.
first
We'll
AD
receive.
would read
I've
it.
got 4 witnesses who say different.
So what are you saying? He's lying?
Well,
And why would he do that? Because he feels guilty?
I would if I just injured my sick wife.
Right, I'm going to go and see Mr. Lilly. You go and speak to the witness who saw the rear of the car. Now, see if she can remember when he braked. If it was after he hit the curb, odds on he'd fallen asleep.
Nice bit of polo acting there.
He's got a broken leg and some minor cuts and bruises. Apart from that, apparently he's in remarkably good condition for a man of his age.
Right, thanks, Narika.
And he worked until he
Mrs.
was in
Hacker,
his
I wonder if I can
90s,
quick word with your father.
Alfred Burke.
I'll go and sit with
His
Kath.
last screen role, he's in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets as Professor Dibbit, the headmaster of Hogwarts.
Hello, Mr. Lilly.
But he
I'm
doesn't have any
Sergeant Ackman from
dialogue,
Sun
which
Hill.
must have been cut because you
I
don't
already told this officer everything I can remember.
cast an
Yes,
actor
I
of this
know, you're
calibre.
very helpful, Mr. Lilly. There's just a few
Basically
things that we
be
need to clear
an
up.
extra out of focus in
You
the background.
were approaching the bus stop on Taft
Right.
Road, yes?
Yeah?
Was there any traffic coming towards you?
No.
And nothing was overtaking you?
I've been through all this. I saw it run out under my wheels.
So what ran out?
A dog. All of a sudden it was there. I couldn't hit it, could I?
You didn't mention a dog before, Mr. Lilly.
It was a dog.
Perhaps it might help if you could describe it to me. What colour was it?
Brown, I think.
And what side of the road did it come out at you from?
What does that matter now?
He
Right-hand side.
he did
my
irritated acting ever so
side. Yes,
well.
it must have been.
Okay, Mr. Lilly.
Was that it?
No, he did everything ever so well. This is
You
what's
must
great
be
about
very
the bill at
tired.
this
You've been on
time.
a
You can
lot of
get
strain recently.
really high quality guest casts.
Jean's got cancer. My wife for 50 years.
It's a long time to be together.
We've never been apart. Except when she was in hospital having the girls. 50 years is a lifetime. You can't just take it away?
No brake lights went on. It just turned in towards the wall.
You're quite sure about that?
Oh, positive.
Only I noticed that you wear glasses.
Yes, so I can see better.
Okay. Thanks very much for your help, miss.
Very good.
Are you sure you would like a cup of tea?
No, honest. Thanks.
Okay, Dave, thanks.
Dave is sometimes a victim of
the
the script, isn't he, as to whether he's a bit of a plonker, whether he's really switched on.
Mercy killing, possibly in the joint suicide.
But that's the case for many a Bill character. I'll just mute that. I'll pause it there. Normally, when I do the reactions on, I've just paused that, by the way. Normally, I split these into two parts on the Patreon channel, just to keep the content coming, and I would then do a long sort of review at the end of the parts before the next one continues. Here, I am going to keep going, but I just wanted to explain that. Do we think Alfred Burke's character, Mr. Lilly, has done this intentionally to put his wife out of any misery she might be suffering? That's an early thought. I'll save my full thoughts for the end of the episode. So I'll press play again now. I'm going to keep the title music muted just while I do that. It's nice that the ad caps are still here. Sometimes they get chopped off on DVD.
Your father certainly seems to be a strong character.
Oh, yes.
Public Eye was not just produced
So how
by
did he
Michael
take the news of
Chapman,
your
but
mother's cancer?
one of the writers was John Kershaw, who was one of the early writers on the bill and script
After 50
editors.
years
So
of marriage, the possibility
there's a
of
nice.
losing her must have caused him a great deal of anxiety.
This is
Of course
towards
he did.
So did he seem depressed at all?
No,
it's towards Michael
it's
Chapman's
not like that.
end of his tenure. So maybe there's a little bit of full circle here in bringing
What
in.
would that be?
Well, then he was
Alfred
so
Burke.
distracted by his feelings that he
I could be
somehow lost
romanticising.
concentration. The accident was his fault.
And you don't think it could have been?
No.
What's great about the bill at this time is that you can take, a car accident and tell a
One thing
self-contained
was upset us all, of course he did.
story and play.
Him most of all.
And sometimes
Dad would never
the
give
bill in this era has two stories going on.
He wasn't going to beat him.
A CID case and a uniform case. When you look at some of the early Barbie Road episodes,
Where do you mean?
I think
Sorry,
of
it's
Christopher
just
Russell
very
as an
frank.
example. He could throw
What did
in
you
like
do that for? I thought
5
you'd
or
be
6
concerned. The
storylines.
whole world have to know.
I'm sorry, who's Uncle Frank?
Dad's brother.
Are they close, Frank and your father?
Yeah.
Who's
Well,
this going to
I
be?
mean, they're very different.
Can you tell us his address, please?
What for?
We're not allowed to talk to him.
60 Brookvale Road. But why do you want to know about Uncle Frank?
But yeah,
They
sometimes you
don't.
can have 5 or 6 storylines in a
These
half
officers
hour, and
came
here
to
you've got
us,
one,
Dad could have been depressed.
and it's unraveling it in layers, the
Well, that's
storyline,
not
the
the question, is
clues.
Well, let's
as
just
they
say Dad
investigate
doesn't have
it.
much sympathy for that sort of thing. He'd say it was just weakness, giving up. That's one thing our father would never do.
It's great. I love all the performances in this. You feel like these characters exist when they're not on the screen. You feel like they've all got a backstory, and that's not always the case in this era of the bill. Sometimes the performances are not. Oh, the late great Roy Heather as well. Well, we're being treated here.
Are you Frank Lilly?
Yes, I am, more or less. Is it bad news?
No.
Thank God.
Can we have a word?
Well, it's chaos in there, if you don't mind that. Please.
He was a lovely actor.
The removal men are going to have a fit.
Obviously, Only Fools and
I
Horses
seem to have lost
legend.
all my energy. I start something and then... It's been such a... Kath said she hadn't regained consciousness.
No, not yet.
I thought it best if I kept out of the way. She was always thinking about her family, caring for other people all her life. I'm sorry. You haven't...
There is no show like this anymore, is there? Doctors was the last kind of
I think I packed the cups.
half an hour ongoing serial
It's all a bit much,
where you could have a guest cast come
especially
in,
coming on top of
give a lovely performance like this. Next
know
next
she was
episode, it's a
ill.
new cast, and
Yes, now, how was your brother handling that?
there's nothing like
like a
it anymore.
general with a mutiny on his hands.
What do you mean?
When something goes wrong, Walter's way is to take action, tell everyone else what to do. He's the kind of person that gets things done.
Has he talked to you, confided in you how he was feeling about his wife's illness?
Feeling? Walter? No, he hasn't. He wouldn't see the point. You know, I do believe I've got a little drop of scotch. Bottom of a bottle somewhere. I'm sorry. You feel so inadequate, don't you? Must be worse for Walter. Even he can't do anything about this.
See, if you were to ask Ceta or Trudy about this episode, you know, they obviously did
When are you moving, Mr.
hundreds
Lilly?
of
I was gonna
episodes.
finish the packing tonight.
They might remember Roy Heather, but they won't remember the
big day.
specific
Why did you go
plot.
to the party?
You know,
Always too much to do here.
You were going
unless
to
you
miss your
show
own
them
brother's
an
50th
episode and
wedding
they see it
anniversary.
for the first.
Didn't matter.
Really?
Well, actually, Gwenda didn't invite me.
Oh,
Why not?
why,
I don't
Uncle
know.
Frank? Why?
You'll have to ask her.
Oh, come inside. My sister can tell you anything you need to know.
No, I can't.
What's going
I'm
on
just going
here?
back to the hospital.
Well, it won't take a minute.
It's good intrigue, isn't it? Yeah.
I understand that your Uncle Frank wasn't invited to the party.
Wasn't he?
Now the
Apparently
party's
not.
not happening.
Yeah, well, he was moving house. You did the invites, why didn't you ask him?
This
Didn't
is-
seem the right thing.
I love
You've
the
known a
tension
lot,
here.
haven't you?
Will you stop lying to me? You knew and yet you didn't
Lisa
say
Evans
anything.
has like written EastEnders,
Gwenda
El Dorado.
found this.
There's some
Mum's
real
stuff from the hospital. This from her to my dad.
soap
Dear
tension
Walter,
here.
I'm sorry, I have to go. I hadn't realised how unhappy I've been for so long, most of my life really, and now I know it doesn't have to be that way. By the time you get this, I will be with Frank. I'm not coming back. My keys are on the dressing table.
Has your father seen this?
No.
I found it in Mum's bag when we brought it back from the hospital.
I don't think we're going to even
You
hear
knew about her and Frank before this, didn't you?
No.
Oh, come
the
on.
mum
if I
have
didn't
any
to do the
dialogue,
work.
are we?
I knew they liked each other. They laughed. Probably at Dad.
Maybe they just laughed.
Did your father know about their relationship?
No.
But you noticed how well Frank and your mother got on.
Well, women do notice that sort of thing. But it would never occur to Dad.
What is that, brother?
Never.
We're going to need to take that
Well, what for?
as part of our inquiry. You say that it was sealed when you found it
Yes.
and addressed to your father.
Yes.
So why did you open it?
I thought it might be important.
Well, why didn't you just give it to your father to open?
Covering
I
up.
don't know. It made sense at the time.
Did you know what it said, perhaps?
No, I had no idea.
I'm sorry, I still don't understand why you opened a letter addressed to your father from your mother.
Precisely because of that. I mean, why would she be writing to him? I mean, why not just say it, whatever it was?
So you thought it might be bad news?
I suppose so. I was thinking of Dad. I wanted to protect him. He'd just been in a terrible accident, for heaven's sake.
And what do you think his reaction would have been had he opened the letter himself?
Hurt, of course. What do you think?
But how can they prove it though?
You're not going to make me say this was his fault.
Sierra Oscar 3 from 340 receiving.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, Sarge, I've just spoken to the AI. As far as he can tell, until the car collided with the wall, it was in perfect working order, including the brake lights.
Received. Did you get hold of the paramedics?
Yeah, when they got there, both Mr. and Mrs. Lilly were inside the car. She was slumped forward unconscious and they were both wearing their seatbelts.
Thanks, Dave. Received. If you were trying to kill yourself by driving headlong into a wall, would you wear a seatbelt?
No.
No.
No. I could watch these actors all day. Trudy, Ceta,
Mr.
Andy,
Lilly.
Paul.
I've got to do something.
Where were you and your sister-in-law going to go, Mr. Lilly?
How do you know?
Her daughter's found the letter she wrote to Walter.
Walter saw it.
No.
Did he know about you and Jean?
I wondered if he did when this happened. I mean, she always said she daren't tell him face to face, called herself too much of a coward. But what if she changed her mind, you know, when they were in the car?
Sierra Oscar 3 from 340. Free to speak.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Free to Speak, that would be a good name of an episode. Maybe it was.
Mrs. Jean Lilly just died without regaining consciousness.
Oh no.
Received.
Mm.
You do understand that it's even more important now that we find out exactly what happened earlier on today. Are you sure your father had no idea your mother was planning to leave?
Quite sure. He'd never have let her. Frank said he thought she might have told him. No way.
Oh, why not?
She'd have been too terrified of his reaction.
Oh?
He's a bully.
Was he violent?
It's all coming out now.
His fists. Just his tongue.
The
Make you feel small.
the range of emotions these actors are getting to play in a 25-minute.
She was just about to get away from it. That's what I can't bear.
Oh,
She was just daring to grab at this last chance. If you knew my mother, you'd know after all of those years with him. Just how brave that was.
oh.
Gwenda. The letter was opened when you found it, wasn't it?
Oh.
And where was it?
It was in Dad's jacket pocket. My father had read the letter.
Yep.
He knew.
She was still trying to protect him. Well, I suppose different. While there was a chance of her mum recovering, perhaps, or just out of fear.
Mr. Lilly, I came to see you earlier, do you remember?
Yes, of course.
Are you feeling well enough to talk to me now?
My wife's died. Jean's dead.
I know. I'm very sorry. Mr. Lilly, this was found in your pocket after the accident. Do you know who it's from?
It's from my wife
When did you open it, Mr. Lilly?
this morning. I wasn't supposed to find it till after she'd gone, but I did.
What did you do after you'd opened it?
We'd been married 50 years. She was my wife. She was everything to me. 50 years of my life she had. And he was just going to waltz right in and take her away.
It's your brother, Frank.
You've got to defend what's yours. It's only natural. All those years, I looked after her. I paid for everything for her. She was mine, not his. Walter and Jean. That's how it was.
What happened in the car?
He's one of
Mr.
those
Lilly?
hypnotic
I want to live
actors.
without her. She was my responsibility. I decide what happens in my family. I couldn't lose her, could I?
So what did you do?
We weren't supposed to be apart. I decided we'd go together.
What you're saying, Mr. Lilly, is that you deliberately drove your car into the wall.
Yeah.
You did this in order to cause your wife's death.
I didn't want to live without her. We belonged together. I wanted to die too.
The only thing is, Jean wanted to live.
Very good. I really enjoyed it. And doesn't it make you sad that a drama series like this doesn't exist anymore, where it is like the single play, the self-contained play? And to me, this is a real classic example of Michael Chapman's vision for the Bill. He wanted it to be that self-contained throwback to the likes of Play for Today. I mean, Public Eye is if any of you watching this haven't seen Public Eye, do treat yourselves, because it's a marvellous series and quite often a very bleak look at humanity and people's relationships with each other. And this is a kind of, this storyline wouldn't have been, I mean, Frank Marker doesn't deal with, like, you know, murders or things like that. He normally deals with, you know, gathering information to prove an affair or a theft or something like that, you know, people who don't want to use the police and keep it out of the papers, etc. But in terms of family feuds, this is a great kind of example of that kind of story that Public Eye told so well, and that Michael Chapman was the story editor on. When you look at a bill writer like Peter J. Hammond, who had been a script editor on Z-Cars. A lot of his bills, whilst very quirky and eccentric and brilliant, some of the guest characters, he might have an eccentric pathologist, for example, are straight out of Z-Cars, that kind of really dark sense of humour. So I love the dotted lines between not just the bill, but the careers of the people who made the bill. And Lisa Evans, it's a shame. I mean, she did write one more bill in 2006. It's a shame she didn't write more, but she had a very successful television career and is still working as an author and a playwright. She's written a lot of radio, but she wrote a lot for different TV shows. But to me, you can see there, I think there's elements of Soap, that kind of classic, the two sisters there rowing over the envelope, that felt like straight out of EastEnders. And obviously the hospital, the knowledge of the way that the paramedics talked about the scene. I'm sure Lisa will have gathered a lot of information on that front from Casualty. And the bill had two police advisors, the longest serving of which was Trevor Hermes, who I've interviewed, a great man, and he'll have been advising on this episode. So from the traffic element as well, the writers would pitch a premise, and that could be a one-page premise on what was going to happen. They'd then be commissioned to write a storyline where they'd flesh it out in more detail. At that stage, they'd be paid. So the premise, no payment. Storyline, a payment. If it goes to script, then the payment is extended to a full script pay. That was the workflow. And some writers were pitching idea after idea after idea and not being successful. In this case, Lisa Evans was. I mention this because I'm currently presenting a series called The Evidence Room on the Patreon channel, where I've been donated 60 box files of monthly production paperwork donated to me by the production scheduler, Nigel Wilson, who started as a stage manager on the bill in 1984. He worked on the bill for 18 years, one of the really important members of the bill production team, a great man. Nigel would be responsible. You've got 3 episodes being made a week, so 2 are being made in tandem with this episode. He'd be responsible for making Trudy and Sita and Andy Paul available for this episode, and taking other members of the cast and making them available for episodes being shot in tandem. Sometimes, if you had a character that wasn't really the case here, but I mean, arguably Andy Paul could have done 2 days on this episode and then spend 3 days working on another episode, for example. That was Nigel's responsibility. Well, Nigel donated me these amazing box files, and so I've been making a series called The Evidence Room 1999. That's a 56-part series, one for every week of the year in 1999, plus 4 bonus editions, where I might read an entire episode storyline in detail, or there was a spin-off one about Brookside at that time, in terms of where Brookside was in 1999. 4 years later, it would be off the air. So it was looking at the challenges facing Brookside at that time in relation to the bill, which was going through a very successful period in 1999. I'm currently recording The Evidence Room 2000, and I am recording reaction videos to stories from 2000 to be released in tandem with The Evidence Room as I go through. As I say, there are episodes from 1993 onwards in the bill that I haven't seen all of them. I've seen episodes from every era, but not all of it. Primarily the last, 5 years of the bill is probably my biggest gap in knowledge. So it's great. it's great recording the 2007 reactions in tandem with the 2000s, because the way they are made and produced are very, very different. And I'm not necessarily going to reveal here which one I am pro in terms of its production values. I really liked the way that After All These Years was directed by Tim Holloway. Other than that back and forth between Andy Paul's Quinnen and The Witness, which was just occasionally the bill falls into that trap of doing close-up, reverse. And to me, if it happens 8 or 10 times, I'm waiting for something more. I'd almost rather hold it on guest actor for 2 lines, then go for 2 more, just to break it up a bit. Sometimes it's a bit ping pong in direction. That's a minor quibble, but it's endemic of this era of the bill, where occasionally you'd get a new director, and I mean Tim Holloway was a new director. He did 4 episodes of the bill in total. I thought he did a really nice job here. Great performances, great cast, and I liked that. You probably noticed a kind of trademark of his, it seems to me, is starting the shot on a moving shot away from something to find your character as they then start their scene. And it just means that the action is moving. It's always on the move immediately, even if it's then going to stay, it's going to move a little bit and find a resting place of the scene. Like that scene with Trudy and Andy, where it started on Trudy, from the vehicle being towed away, over to Trudy, walks back, sits down next to Andy, scene continues, Trudy stands up, scene changes, but it's all in one shot. And that to me, I really like shots like that. That's what I associate with a bill, especially when you go all the way back to 1984 to those wonderful long shots which would last 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. Sometimes in the bill we were really spoiled and we'd have an entire first half of an episode shot in one take. The likes of They Also Serve springs to mind. But to finish my review on that, I feel that was a really good example of the bill in 1997, focused on one story. The plot was unravelled. It felt in a smart way. There's a limit on evidence. They can only gain so much from the scene and from witness statements. Little plug for the books I've written called Witness Statements, looking at the bill in depth in the 1980s. But then you meet a new character who drops in, Uncle Frank. We then meet Uncle Frank. We learn a bit more about him. We then find the letter and everything being torn down. It's great family drama, isn't it? And then, of course, we get the killer delivery from Alfred Burke. Such a mesmerising actor to watch. Very, 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 very still, very minimal. He's just one of those actors that I find quite addictive to watch, and he won't always do what you expect him to do. As Frank Marker, he's like a coiled spring of frustration sometimes, and he really, very internalised. Such a great actor, and had a superb career. So, the bill was lucky to get an actor of his calibre, and I suspect that would have been down to Michael Chapman. I think, Michael Chapman was getting ready to retire at the end of 1997. Some of his episodes were banked to continue into 1998. They needed a bank of episodes and needed to be ahead of the game. So that, to me, I could be romanticising it, but it feels like a full circle to bring in Alfred Burke. Public Eye was a huge part of Michael Chapman's career at Thames, and do check it out. And I hope you've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed recording this for you to go out on YouTube. And if you've enjoyed watching this episode of The Bill with me and maybe seeing it from a different perspective or thinking about it in a different way and would like to watch more of these, There's hundreds of them available on the Bill Podcast Patreon channel. You can join from $2.99 as a rookie, and you'll instantly unlock, well, hundreds of reaction videos. And we've got the Bill Obocast coming. I'm also unlocking one edition of the Evidence Room 1999 for rookie patrons monthly as 2025 continues. Plus, you've got the special reactions with Andrew McIntosh and Natalie Rolls to enjoy. Or you can unlock all of those immediately as a Constable patron for $5.99. We're trying to do more with the Bill Podcast Patreon channel. I am still writing books, and so that's why I've brought in Patrick Stratford, Rob Cook, and Edward Kellett to co-present the Bill Podcast. Between them, they've already recorded 20 podcasts and commentaries. Only, I think 4 or 5 have been released so far, and there's 10 guests making their debut on the Bill Podcast Patreon channel in 2025. So people we've never heard from, I should say. You'll know who they are. Some of the very recognisable actors from, in fact, the next 4 standard podcasts, which Sergeant patrons get there half a year ahead on the Patreon channel. Coming up, we've got 4 actors covering the Richard Hanford hour-long era, the Michael Chapman half-hour era, the Paul Marquis hour-long era, and the Jonathan Young era. So we got an actor who was literally right there to the very end of the bill. That's all coming up on the Bill Podcast Patreon channel. Rob, Edward, and Patrick each get a share of the Patreon income, so that I can reimburse them and thank them for their time in recording these interviews. And they're all brilliant interviewers, and they're doing fantastic work. So if you're able to support the channel, and if we can get the income up, then I'll be able to pay them more for their time. So, to give back, not just release more content for the fans, but also to actually have the fans in a position where they are also interviewing legends of the Bill. Edward specialises in the writers of the Bill, because he's written the fantastic Reaching a Verdict series, the 3rd edition of which is reprinting at the minute. And you can order them from Amazon, Waterstones, or devonfirebooks.com, where he goes into granular information, looking at every key storyline from each era of the Bill, and refers it to the context of what was happening in London and in the UK, and with the police more generally at that time as well. So it gives the context of the storylines. They're brilliant books, well worth a read. I think that's everything I wanted to share. So the Bill Podcast, it's going 8 years. We'd love to get it to the 10th anniversary. So we'd be really grateful for your support. If you're watching this, the Viavision DVDs are all out. These ones are out of print. So there's not really that kind of ongoing merchandise for fans to buy in terms of the Bill. But you can join the investigation on Patreon and enjoy over 200 hours of exclusive content. Thank you. Thank you for watching this. I really hope you've enjoyed it, and perhaps we'll see you on Patreon, and you can enjoy some more of these reactions and join. There's a lovely community on there of fellow Bill fans sharing their thoughts and insight on the series, and they teach me stuff as well. So I love it, and I hope you will join us. Take very good care of yourselves. Enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are watching this, and thanks for stopping by. All the best. Take good care, and bye for now.